I think people just really love me f***ing my best friend in audiobook format. So, I mean, why the heck not?
Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beard Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not, and I just realized I forgot to update the ticker. Yeah, fuck that ticker. We know what we're working on today. We're knee-deep into Nora Phoenix, which is very exciting. We're working on Norden. We've got a kind of a surprise Tantor project that just popped up at the last minute that we're going to be doing later on this week. Then we're moving on to other stuff. It's an exciting time. We got the Ramblin' Gremlin show coming up on Thursday, as always. Might I tell you, little Alyssa Gremlin has been kicking ass with this thing, all right? And speaking of, little Alyssa Gremlin, I believe, is the reason that we have the guests that we have today, which I'm really excited about. But back to the Ramblin' Gremlin for a second. Not only is that girl putting together all of the audiobook releases in our genre every week, which is pretty killer in and of itself, she's putting them in there, putting all the information in. Then she's also doing reviews every week. It's like 20 or 30 minutes of a show. It's killer. Good job, Alyssa. Love you to death. Thank you for doing all the hard work. Because all I have to do, literally, this is all I have to do every week, is show up and just make fun of shit. It's awesome. I love it. So, the guest that we have today, I'm really looking forward to. Now, I'm going to read you the bio. I was talking to him beforehand. Liam DiCosimo, a modern, and he has this Irish, yeah, he's feeding me the line. How do you say this shit, Liam? How do you say it? Shawnee. A modern Shawnee. That fucking means storyteller. That's how real people say it, but it's all right. Irish people are special. We've already learned this. Hello, Cheryl Kaiser. How are you? She's in the crowd, too. Or Irish folk storyteller comes from the long tradition of using a wide range of conventions, styles, and speech and gestures that were particular to the Irish folk tradition that helped characterize it. Fuck it. Let's just bring him on. Hello. How the hell are you, Liam?
Doing well, John. Thanks for having me on. And I have to echo your sentiments about Melissa. She is absolutely fantastic. She's always asking me for like clips for books before they come out, and I'm probably 50% there where I'll get her a clip, and then other times I just get too busy and I forget. But she is always understanding and always a sweetheart about it. So Melissa, my apologies for the ones that I missed, but I greatly appreciate the ones that you put out for me.
Dude, she's awesome. And it's kind of fun in the community. See, when we first started doing these, she would ask me to do a clip, and I would do some production shit. There's another buddy of mine, Gary Furlong. Have you met Gary yet? He's another narrator in the genre. And
I know the name. I don't think we've met though.
You would like him. He's an Irish lad, and he in particular would go like full phone, like a 5-minute edited video for his send-in sample clips, which were awesome. They were entertaining as fuck. But that takes like 4 hours, you know? Ain't nobody got time for that. So, yeah, please, send them in when you can. We really appreciate it. It's fucking awesome. But she's been rocking it. Now, I did my show prep, as I always do, 5 minutes before I do the show, because I'm pretty fucking lazy. And what I found out in my 5 minutes of just perusing Facebook and finally finding you is you're into Star Wars. So we got to talk here.
Yes. I saw the Mandalorian poster on your wall there, so...
I'm kind of embarrassed. This is going to come down pretty soon, okay? Because I love Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars. It's just the first season. It was fucking cool. It was. There were some hit or miss kind of thing. What's your opinion on this old Disney Star Wars deal?
So I love it. I mean, for those that know me, a lot of Star Wars tattoos. So I love Star Wars, have loved it since the first time I watched it. And keep in mind, I was born in 1982. So the first movie my parents claim they ever took me to go see was Return of the Jedi, which I would have been about 6 months old in May of 1983. But my parents are separated, and they both still claim that was the first movie they took me to. So I'll still take that as though that's true. But keep in mind, Irish family, so we do love to tell stories. So maybe it just really became a really good story that everybody just repeated often enough that it became true. Tim likes to say, he said it on our most recent podcast of the Love God, that I will never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So you can always kind of take what I say with a grain of salt. But yeah, no, I love Star Wars. When Disney took it over, my wife and I celebrated because we're huge Disney fans. We went down to Celebration when they did the first reveal of everything that was coming out for like Force Awakens and Rogue One and all the plans that they kind of had set in motion. I think like with all properties, there's always going to be some things that resonate with you and other ones that don't. I had done an episode of Ariyama, who's an artist that sometimes works with Disney, and we did an episode right after we saw The Last Jedi, and we basically trashed the movie the entire time, but we kept saying like, but I really liked the movie, but all we did was keep like picking apart all the things that didn't make sense or what we would have done differently. So it really came into play, that idea of like different strokes for different folks. And I think with The Mandalorian, each season has been differently polarizing for each fan. Some people have said that season 3 was their least favorite. For me, it was my most favorite. And I didn't really care for the Clone Wars animated TV show. So when they bring in people like Bo-Katan Freeze, like I really don't, or Kreese, like I don't really give a shit, because that wasn't a character that I was like, oh, it's Bo-Katan. But I do appreciate the taking an animated character and bringing them live screen. I like to a live action. I think that's something as Star Wars fans we all had kind of hoped to see eventually, was just a TV show that gave us 30 to 45 minute episodes instead of waiting 20, 30 plus years for the next installment cinematically. So I'm a fan, but I'm easy to please. What about you, John? Like, what were kind of your thoughts on this new breed of Star Wars?
Well, first off, all due respect, man, and props. You know your shit, which is fucking awesome. I get excited about it. You know, I'm a Star Wars fan to the core. When Disney took over, I was excited, more Star Wars, and I still am, to a point. To a point. I have a choice where I can not watch something and not support it, or watch something and support it as I see fit. That's where I put my dollars, and that's just the way it fucking works. I have not been a fan of Mandalorian season 2 or 3. Season 2 was really hit or miss for me. Season 3, fuck it. And you know what? To be fair, I have not given it an entire shake, because I made it halfway through the first episode of season 3, and I was just like, I don't care. I don't care about this anymore. So I just stopped watching. What I did instead was I watched The Critical Drinker, and who's the other one? Oh, there's a guy that does Obi-Wan Kenobi, sitting on a couch, and Qui-Gon is across from him in a chair, and they watch all the episodes of The Mandalorian, and it's fucking hilarious. They do a deep fake of the faces, and it's really, really good.
Yeah.
So I've watched
I've seen that pop up on my TikTok.
Yeah, I've watched those instead of watching the episodes, though. But that being said, Andor, in my opinion, was fucking phenomenal. It was really good. Solo, Rogue One, also phenomenal. But you said something. You went all the way down to the basically Star Wars fucking week, and actually observed.
Yep.
I've watched these on YouTube. If anyone in the crowd has ever seen anything like this on YouTube, it's worth. What's the name of this? It's Celebration Day. Is that correct?
So yeah, it's Celebration, and they typically were doing it every 2 years, but then they've started doing like the off year will be overseas. So they'll typically do it, like I'm in Fresno, California, so I'm only about 4 hours north of Anaheim. So when they would do it at the Anaheim Convention Center, my wife and I would go down. And it was super funny when they did it in 2015. Our son was only 4 months old. And we were like, well, we already had bought tickets for this like a year plus in advance. So we were like, well, we're not going to go. So we took a 4-month-old, like 4-month brand new out of the box baby to Star Wars Celebration. And like we have great pictures, we have great memories from it. We went to D23 that's later that same year. So like within the first year of his life, he had been to Disneyland multiple times. He'd been to Star Wars Celebration. He'd been to the D23 convention. So he has, understandably grown up a very, very big Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars fan, which is apt because his first name is Remy, which I named him from Gambit because that was my favorite X-Man. And then his middle name is Elias, which is Walt Disney's middle name. So yeah, we went full tilt boogie with the firstborn. So yeah,
Dude, that
good
is
times.
awesome. Wait, okay, you got a 4-month-old baby. I have a much older child. He's 26. He can carry him damn self at this point. But
They're
um,
close.
I,
They're close.
I remember having a 4-month-old child. Amazingly enough, it's been a long time ago, and I remember what a pain in the ass it is to pretty much go anywhere, and especially sunny California. And you're going to walk outside, and you got the child. But you being a Star Wars fan, what did you dress the child up as?
So we kind of opted more for like the onesies, where it's be like, here's a Chewbacca onesie, or here's
Okay,
like a Yoda
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
onesie, and we had a little knit hat with like the Yoda ears on it too, so it was pretty full. And at the time, I was a pretty active member of the 501st, which is a cost. For those that don't know, the 501st is also referred to as Vader's Fist, and it's a costuming group that does charity work. So we go and we visit hospitals, schools, we do conventions, we do all sorts of things. A lot of the extras that you see in shows like The Mandalorian are actually 501st members because they already have screen accurate costumes. So for me, I have what is called an Imperial officer or a TIE pilot. So I have that is my main costume that I wear. So I got to wear that around the entire convention one of the days because they were getting every 501st member that was there to go outside on the roof of the convention center, and they did one big photograph. But we had to stand outside in the California sun for close to 2 hours. And because I was not a helmeted character at the time, I was one of the first ones that had to go out there because they were bringing on like the Darth Vaders and the Boba Fett's at the end, so that way those guys didn't have to stand in the sun for quite as long. But it was epic. We always try to go in all of our Disney gear. We have vests that have patch pins and all the regalia on it. So yeah, we're pretty we're pretty into it. We're pretty big diehard fans.
That's pretty awesome. I'm going to ask you to do something on a technical side for me, and this is just because we're kind of losing a connection on your audio a little bit here and there. I
Sure.
don't normally do this, but I think we've got some time, and I think you're cool enough. Is there any way you can disconnect and reconnect your call, and you'll just come right
Mhm.
back into this call for me? That might help us out
I
tremendously here.
will.
Excellent.
All right, I
Uh,
shall return.
Excellent. And guys, this is fucking awesome. I get to talk to somebody about Star Wars. The Star Wars celebration that he's been to, if you've never looked it up on YouTube, I know I'm a huge Star Wars fan and you guys aren't, but fuck you, it's my show. The Star Wars celebration that he's going to is packed. There are like thousands of fucking people. Thousands upon thousands in this little room. Can you hear me?
We're good.
Excellent. We are. Thank you
All right,
very much.
cool.
Now, coming
No
back,
problem.
little Alyssa Gramlin in the crowd, and I feel comfortable saying her name even on YouTube because, well, fuck you. She's in a show on YouTube with me too. She has been talking about a couple of your projects in particular, and I'm going to say the names of them. I've not listened to these yet. Bad Wrong Things and The Boy Who Loved Wicked. Do those ring a bell with you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and she's talking about
So
how much she feels those are your best narrations. Can you tell me about those projects?
sure. So those were more recent projects that I had just completed with Bad Wrong Things was with Teddy Hamilton, and then The Boy Who Loved Wicked was with the quintessential Tim Page, which I couldn't even give you a count for how many books him and I have done together at this point. So I think people just really love me fucking my best friend in audiobook format. So I mean, why the heck not? Those books were incredibly how do I want to put it? They took it a ton of effort because they were both very emotional books. So there were a lot of times in those chapters where I had to like stop and recompose myself before I could continue on. But they were fantastic to narrate. They were uh, what I felt was probably some of my best work to date, and I've been narrating for about 3 years now. But to be honest, sometimes the way the book is written makes it very easy for you to get into who that character is without you really having to like insert yourself into the story. You just sort of become the character um, that you're narrating. And with those two books, I've been fortunate to work with an author named Only James, who I've done. Oh my gosh, I think Only and I have done like 14 or 15 books together now, and she was one of the first authors to start working with me, along with like Brian O'Sullivan and KM Newhold, uh, uh, JJ Harris. So a couple of those authors that have really kind of stuck with me for the length of 3 years already. But same thing for her books. It's very easy to kind of get into those characters. Uh, so I've been fortunate to work with CC Ricky, like a bunch of really good authors that have kind of taken a chance on me, and hopefully I've done their stories justice.
Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of questions because one, you have a unique scenario with having a dual narration buddy that, correct me if I'm wrong, does Tim still live close to you? I mean, is that
No,
okay? So,
so I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and then when I met my wife, when we were Tim and I used to be in a band together. So when we were touring, we were out here in on the West Coast, and I met my wife, and her and I did long distance for about a year. And when the band started to wrap up, her parents offered to let me live with them on a job and kind of got myself situated out here. So I moved in 2011 out here to the West Coast, and I've lived here ever since. But Tim has been my best friend for the better part of 20 years. I think this year is 20 years now. So we've always kept in touch, and he was the catalyst behind me starting my journey into narration.
when you're working with Tim in particular with these, because you were not local together, you're obviously using different booths. Are you working together at the same time on a project if you're doing a dual narration? Or are you working like in Discord or Zoom or something like that so you can hear each other? Or are you just trading files back and forth? Or are you just confident in characters? I do my job, you do yours. We have somebody put it together.
It honestly depends on the project. So for some projects, if they have very specific notes for the characters and how they want them to sound, we typically will both gravitate towards the what the author's instruction has been. In those instances too, we know each other well enough that we know what voice the other person will go with when it says like low raspy. We know the style of voice that we're going to go with to keep it consistent. On other projects, if there isn't specificity in how the author wants the characters performed, then we just send voice texts back and forth. Like we text each other all day, every day, anyways. So I'll just send him a little voice note, like, "Hey, for this character, this is the voice I did," and then that way he has it for reference.
Gotcha. I've actually, I have one guy that, actually several guys that live local, but one that's really still in the industry, Nick J. Russo, and he's a buddy of mine for years and years and years. And we actually did a duet narration in this booth one time together, which was, it
Nice.
was kind of a fun experience. Also a little, because we're in the same boat and we're like, staring each other dead in the eyes, doing sex scenes, and so that was a little funky, but we got through it. But that was a different experience to nowadays. I know a lot of narrators, and I've done quite a few dual narrations. I've never done one specifically where I've seen people do this in Discord. One person will record a chapter, then they'll flip. The other person will record a chapter. That way they're each kind of watching each other. I would love to do that at some point just to have that connection. But the fact that you and Tim have known each other for so long, it's probably overkill as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, we have a duet that we're doing later on in the summer. That'll be the first time we've had to do a duet together. Like we've done one where we've read like a scene, we've read part of a chapter and put it on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or whatever, just for fun. But it wasn't the actual representation of how it was going to sound in the book. But for this book coming up, we actually have one that will be a duet, and it'll be the first time him and I've had to do that together. So I'm excited for that one. That'll be a change of pace.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole new experience for you, and I'd love to hear how it goes for you guys because I'm sure it's going to go smooth. For your booth setup,
We'll
I
see.
want to get technical here for a minute. What are you using for your microphone? What are you using for your interface? Are you a PC, Mac? Tell me about your setup here and your gear.
So I'm a PC man through and through. My wife and I had a Mac laptop, and I hated it. Like, just absolutely loathed it. She didn't mind it quite so much, but she ended up going back to just a PC laptop. My setup, my brother-in-law is a computer whiz, and so this is the third PC tower that he's built me now. And this one we actually built together. Like he was like, "Hey, I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to show you how we do this, what each thing means, why it means that." And it was funny. We did this build because I used to work. I used to use a Focusrite, like a Scarlett 2i2, for my audio interface. But I had bought an Apollo Twin X, but I didn't have the Thunderbolt connectivity on my old PC. So he got me a new motherboard. We were so excited about it, put it together, and it would not recognize the Apollo Twin. So we just kept working through
Oh,
it, and then finally I bought a PC PCIe card. That one didn't work. He found a different one that did work. And we even sent the specs to Universal Audio, and they were like, "Oh, your motherboard doesn't."
Wait a minute. I think we lost him. Hang on here. Yeah, Liam, I think, let me message him, I guess. I think we lost him right in the middle of that call. I've only had that happen a couple times with vMix.